The sikha we will be learning today is in the sikha Chelik Yutes, the third sikha for Chag Sukkos, and it has a connection to what's going to be the year. This year is the year of Hakel, the year after Shemitah, and the sikha talks about the mitzvah of Hakel that was done in the year after Shemitah in the Beis Hamikdash. The Negei to mitzvah Hakel, the Rebbe says like this. Concerning the mitzvah of Hakel, the time of Hakel is Motzei Yontif of the first day of Sukkos, which is the beginning of the days of Chalamed. Obviously, there were no 2 days Yontif then, so Motzei of the first day was the beginning of Chalamed. So concerning this mitzvah of Hakel, which means that it was a time when everybody had to come to Yerushalayim, and as we'll see, men, women, and children, and the king. They would make a stage and the king would read for them, teach them, so to speak, certain portions of the Torah. So concerning the mitzvah of Hakel, we find something special that we don't find by other mitzvahs. The mitzvah of Hakel nemt darum al Eden. The mitzvah of Hakel has to do with all the Eden, even little kids. It states in the Pasuk, like it says in the Pasuk, Hakel is home, gather the nation, men, women, and children. So generally, we don't find that in the mitzvah of the Torah of the Reise, Ktanim, children under Bar Mitzvah should have a participation midaraisa together, similar and together with all the other Yidden. Hakel is the Torah is a kelel in their mitzvah zusammen mit alle Yidden. But in the mitzvah of Hakel, the Torah puts them together in this mitzvah together with all the Yidden. So the Rebbe says we could say that in this inyan, the special thing that Hakel includes children has to do with the main nakuda of what the teichen, the context of the mitzvah of Hakel is. Keder the common, as the Rebbe says, he will explain soon. So the Rebbe starts explaining the inyan of Hakel. Penigul, then you'll get out of we learn in Pashtas, we learn simple pshat, is the Ishtatfus and Tafel mitzvahs Hakel achiyuv, was is chal nicht of the Ktanim Atzmon, or of the Avaim. I must also bring in. We learn in Poshe pshat, the fact that children have to participate and be part of the mitzvah of Hakel is a chiyuv not on the children themselves, on the Ktanim themselves, but on the parents, on the father mainly, and on the mother. I must also bring them, we should bring them. When the Gemara in Chkige sagt, as the Gemara actually says in Chkige Dav Gimel, why do the children come? In order to give reward to those that bring them. So it's mainly that for the benefit of the parents, that the parents who bring them should get reward. So the mitzvah really is not on the children themselves, the mitzvah is on the parents to bring it. That's what it seems. When they dem da bepashtas come, and according to this, if this is the way we learn that to sing the pashtas, as when the cotton is in azam matzav as a godel in themselves matzav is potter from Hakel, if the child is in such a situation that had he been a godel, he would have been potter from Hakel. L'dugma, for instance, a cheresh. Cheresh is somebody who's not really normal. Suma, a blind person, that they're potter from Hakel. Is that al scott nichlil in chiyuv? But being a child, you are part of the chiyuv. In other words, like this, we know there's a chiyuv of chinuch. Chinuch means that the children, even though they're under bar mitzvahs, so they're not really obligated midaraisa to do all the mitzvahs, but you have to train them when they're still children to do it. But the din is that if the child is in such a situation that had he been a godel, and when he will be a godel, he will be potter, so there's no reason to make them do the mitzvah of chinuch. There's no reason to make him do it now. And the whole reason is so he should be able to do it later if he'll be able to be potter. But in this case, being that the mitzvah is not on the children, the mitzvah is on the father, on the mother, so it would come out that if the child is such a child that when he'll be an adult, he'll be in the same situation. He would be potter. He's still part of the mitzvah. The bal der chiva mitzvah is not of him, since the obligation of the mitzvah is not on him, nor if an af to bring him. It's only on the father to bring him. Is we talking chilik in welchem matzah the cotton is? It makes no difference in what level or what situation the child is. The parents have to bring him, so the child makes no difference what he is. If it would be a mitzvah on the child, then the mitzvah is only there. If it'd be an adult, he'd be chayiv. So child is also chayiv. But if he's in the case where had he been an adult, he'd be potter of a child also. But now that we're saying that it's only a mitzvah of the parents, of the father mainly, but mainly, even if the child is in such a way that had he been a godel in this situation, he would be potter, the parents still have to bring him. He says, I'm nicht verstanden, but if this is the pshat, that it's a mitzvah on the parents, not on the children, is not understood. What's not understood? The Gemara sagt in Masechta Kedushin, the Gemara says in Kedushin Daf Lamed Dalet, then it's a mitzvah hakel, concerning this mitzvah hakel, as I feel when the posek got mitgestanden beferish the chiv hakel banoshim, but even if the posek wouldn't say clearly that women are obligated in the mitzvah of hakel, but when the chiv banoshim abgelernt takal v'chemer from ktanim, we would have known it anyway. We would have learned it out from a kal v'chemer from children. Failing chayovin noshim lekolish. If children have to come, women certainly have to come. But the question is, by taf is not of meviyim canal. If by children, it's only on the parents that the parents have the obligation, but the children are not mechuyev themselves. How could the Gemara in Kedushin say that children are chayiv, so women are certainly chayiv? Children are not chayiv. The parents are chayiv to bring them, the children are not chayiv. But from that Gemara, it seems that the children are chayiv themselves. Another thing, it's not only the mere fact that the Gemara uses the lotion that children are chayiv. The Gemara says we would have been able to learn how to kal v'chemer just like the women, the children are chayiv. The women are also certainly chayiv. But we're saying that the children are not chayiv. So how do you make a kal v'chemer? The children are chayiv, women are certainly chayiv. The children are not chayiv. Now you might answer, this Gemara says agadat. It's called agadat. It's agodat. It's not the real halacha. So maybe that's the pshat. When the Gemara says that the whole purpose why the children have to come, so the parents should have reward, that's an agadat, but that's not like a halacha. The baldat is an agodat adrash. It's only adrash the Gemara tash. We can't learn out from agadat any real halacha things. But la halacha maybe they're mechuyev. In other words, to answer the contradiction between these two Gemaras, the Gemara Giga says that the children are not mechuyev. It's only that the parents should get reward for bringing them. So that's why you have to bring them. So it's a din in the parents, not in the children. The Gemara Kedushin says that the children are chayiv. So you can answer. The Gemara in Kedushin is la halacha, and the Gemara in Giga is agadete. So in agadete we say it's the parents who have to bring them to get reward. And we don't learn la halacha that, and in the Gemara in Kedushin it's talking halacha. It's hard to say that. Because you find in many places that we use this Gemara in Chigigah where it says that the reason the children have to come is because the parents should bring them and have reward. We use that for halacha. Where do we see it? For instance, we see it as a many mitzvahs. Those svarim that count the mitzvahs, they numerate every mitzvah. Bringing it up the Gemara b'shaychas mikas hakel. They bring this Gemara in connection to the mitzvah hakel. In other words, they bring this as part of the mitzvah is that the children have to come. So it's mashma that it's a din on the children. On the contrary, they bring this la halacha that it's the parents should get reward, and they're bringing it in the chelik of doing the mitzvahs. So we see that we can't say it's only an agadat that the Gemara says that the purpose of the bringing the children is so the parents should get reward. Also, we bring it la halacha, so we can't say it's just an agadah concerning whether women are obligated to learn Torah or not. There's a whole discussion, as the Rabbi will also mention it later. So we use this Gemara to show that the women are obligated, or they come to listen, or not, whichever way. But we use this Gemara in connection how to paskan halacha whether women are obligated or not. So from that we see that you can't answer this is only an agadah. So this is a halacha. So we're back to the question. There's a contradiction between two Gemaras. In Gemara in Gigga, it seems that it's not that they have to come, but the parents have to bring them to get reward. And the Gemara in Kedushin says clearly that the children are mechuyev to come. And the Gemara says, had it not said in the Torah clearly women have to come, we'd know it anyway. Kal v'chemer, if children have to come, the women certainly have to come. But that doesn't fit to the other Gemara where the children don't have an obligation to come. Well, we could have said like this. Like the Mefarshim explained, and the Mefarshim that Rabbi brings now 17 is the Marsha, and then he says look in the Erachaim, the Klei Yokar, or whatever. They bring at the psukim from Hakel that's the psukim. The psukim that talk about Hakel are talking about two categories, two types of children of Ktanim. One category of children is those that are in the age of chinuch, because we know the little children, babies, are not in the age of chinuch. Their chinuch goes according to when a child is in the level already that he's able to understand what the mitzvah means. So they're still ktanim, they're still before my mitzvah. So they have Ktanim that Higil Chinuch, they're already in the level of Chinuch. Was aber sehr wird angesagt im zweiten Posik. The second Posik talks about them where it says, that children who don't know, Yishma V'Lomden L'Yiras Hashem, they should listen and learn to fear Hashem. So you have one category of children, and then the Posik says they should themselves learn. So these are the children that the mitzvah is on them. So if you're a Gila Chinuch, they themselves have a mitzvah. Oh, but the Friedrich Posik from Hakel is Anoshim V'Ata, but the other Posik, the earlier Posik, where it says, gather men, women, and children, those children, that's a that's talking about a different category of children, a younger age. Such children which should not reach a level of chinuch. And concerning them, we say, why do they come? In other words, they can't learn themselves, they're not in that level. Why do they come? To give reward to those that bring them. So therefore, we have the answer to the stira, as the Rebbe will say clearly. And the Rebbe says, by the way, when we say that if the children are small, there's only one thing there, that the parents bring them to get schar, while the ones higil chinuch, they have to come themselves. But the Rebbe just says, by the way, but you should know that even when you bring the older children, the parents also get schar. It doesn't take away the schar. In other words, by the older children, there are two things. The parents get schar for bringing them, but besides that, they have their own chiyuv. While the little children, it's only there for the parents to get schar. If you say, according to this, it comes out. When the Gemara says in Kedushin, tefillin, which means little children, taf, are obligated, that's talking about those children which in the level of chinuch. They're included in listening and learning themselves. And that answers the contradiction. When the Gemara says that it's only for the parents to bring them to get schar, that's talking about very little children before chinuch. And when the Gemara in Kedushin says that children are chayiv, is when you gil chinuch. Who could answer that? She's over but it's not clear. This is a doichik to say why. Vorum number one. If by children, is the general chiyuv mitzvahs b'chlal not on the cotton. We know that midaraisa children under bar mitzvah are not chayiv. Midarabanan there's a din chiyuv. But what is the mitzvah of the meaning of the mitzvah of chinuch? So the mitzvah is that the parents, father mainly, should see that the child does the mitzvah. So it comes out, and that is by all children up to bar mitzvah. So it comes out, that even children that the older children, is a chiyuv achinuch l'mitzvahs b'chal mitipim kotten. The obligation of mitzvahs is not on the child, nor zayin gadol machana, but the one that's raising them and educating them. Because Schapiro is as their usually as the father. So by regular chiyuv of chinuch also, it's not on the child himself. But pashtet is so pashtet should be the same thing here. That even an older child, obviously under bar mitzvah, but an older child that yigil chinuch, the mitzvah, the pashtet is not on the child. See, we tried to say that if it's an older child, the Torah put the chiyuv on the child himself. But that says it's not regular because by regular mitzvahs of chinuch, it's not like that. By regular mitzvahs of chinuch, which is not midraisa, but still the chiyuv is on the father to make sure that the child does not chiyuv on the child himself. And then in another place in Chelik Zayin, there's a quotes here in Order 21, Chelik Zayin, Omer 233. The Rebbe talks a lot about what does that mean that the child there's a mitzvah chiyuv, but the Rebbe quotes Machlokes, Rasha, Tosfos, the Ramban. But the bottom line is that the point is that the mitzvah of chinuch is basically on the father. The father should make sure the child should do it, but it's not a chiyuv on the child himself. Now, even if you'll say true, by regular chinuch, the mitzvah is on the father, not on the child. But if you'll say by their mitzvah of hakel, by this mitzvah of hakel, there's a special commandment for the children also, not by under the mitzvahs, not by the rest of the mitzvahs. When they're caught in gufa, the child himself is mechuyev. In other words, the kasha was that by chinuch we find that even by yigil chinuch, it's only on the father, not on the child. So why should it be different here? That's not a kasha. Maybe here it's different. There's a special din of hakel. By hakel, if you're a gil chinuch, the child is mechuyev himself possibly. Especially according to those Rishonim that hold as a kotten shegiel lechinuch, that child which is in the level of chinuch, hagama the chiv chinuch is chalef machanach, even though the real obligation is on the educator, the one that's teaching him, his father. Meintus abinit as a kotten is potter. Doesn't mean that the child himself is potter. He's not potter. He is a chayiv, even though be'etzem the mitzvah is on the father, but because the mitzvah is the father, the child is also chayiv. So there's some Rishonim that learn like that. So you could learn certainly, according to the Rishonim, certainly you could say that the same thing is b'hakel. But even if you hold that over there, it's only the father. That's over there, it's only the father. Certainly, it's hard to understand. If it's over there, only the father, here should also be only the father. But if you're going to say that maybe here is different, and saying different could fit, especially according to those Rishonim that say by every mitzvah, it's also on the child. So in Melee, it's easier to say that by Hakel there is a special mitzvah on the child, on the cotton. But if we learn like that, that when the child is Yigiyah L'chinuch, then he has his own mitzvah, it'll come out a very interesting difference between Yigiyah L'chinuch and not Yigiyah L'chinuch. What will be the difference? An interesting, which seems strange. As by Ktanim, but the Chiva mitzvah is not of Miviyayin, that by the very little children, whereas we said before, the mitzvah is only on the parents who bring them. The Like the Gemara says in Chigil, as we said, that's only for the parents to get rewards. The Torah said the parents should bring them. So it's a din on the parent, not on the child. Is a Chiv and Hakel as we said before, if the mitzvah is on the parent, then it makes no difference if the child is in such a way that had he been a godel, he would have been potter, because it's not a chiv on him. So it'll come out like this: the little children, which are there only because the parents are mechuyev, so they have to bring children, even those children, like a blind person, a blind child, or a child that's not normal, or other things that makes the person potter, they would still have to bring him. If they would be delim, they would be potter, but this is not a mitzvah on them; it's a mitzvah on the parents. The parents have to bring him. Und dafke die ältere Ktanim, but then dafke the older children, Higil lechinuch, that did reach the level of chinuch, which is the tefillin dem sicht kedushin, which is the children that the Gemara in Kedushin talks about. Since they themselves are obligated in hakel, is a chiyuv chal nor dan bezizanya namatzav was b'gdalusa v'oten zegrem chuyiv hakel. These children are only chayiv since it's their chiyuv, only chayiv if they are in such a way that had they been gdelim, they would have been chayiv. But if they are not in a matzav that they would not be chayiv on the gdelim, they would be poter. It seems very strange. The dafke, the little children, you have to bring them no matter what, even if they're chas v'sholom blind, etc., because it's chiv on the father. So who cares the matzav of the child? If they're older children, which would make more sense to be the chiv, a stronger chiv, no, there you'd be poter. If they're not like that, that's strange. And we don't find anywhere that this should be brought down, that's the difference in halacha between the small children and the big children. So if we want to make the chili between the small children and the older children, and the smaller children is only a chiyuv on the parents to bring. The older children is a chiyuv on them. It'll come out this chilik, and we don't find that anywhere. Second thing that happens is the main question on this, making the difference between the younger children and older children, is going to be as follows. And why the Rebbe says this is the main question, according to the previous question, is also a good question. So in order 23, the Rebbe says why the first question is not such a strong question. Because what he said before, it'll come out that the younger children you have to bring under all circumstances. The older children, only if they are in a matzav that had they been gedolim, they would have been chayiv. And that's strange. So the Rebbe says it's lav daka, that's going to be true. Because even if the chiyuv is only on the parents of the ktanim, and when they're older, it's on the ktanim, the parents. When the children are younger, the chiyuv is on the parents, not on the ktanim. And when they're older, the chiyuv is on the ktanim. It doesn't mean, you could say, that the chiyuv on the parents falls off. As we said before, after all, they are bringing them. So even according to the chilik we said before, when they're older, there are two things. When they're younger, there's only one thing, the chiyuv on the parents. When they're older, besides the chiyuv on the parents, there's also a chiyuv on themselves. So who says that if the child is in a matzav that he would not be chayiv had this matzav been when he's older, he would be potter? No, he would still be chayiv, but from a different angle. He'd be chayiv because the parents have an obligation to bring all the children. And his own chiyuv would not be there. But what we asked before, that it seems to be a little bit strange that the younger child has a chiyuv even whichever situation, and older is not a chiyuv, and that's strange, and we don't find it anywhere. Could be it's not even true. Could be that even if there's a difference, the difference is not that when you're older there's no more chiyuv on the parent. When there's small children, the chiyuv on the parent only. When they're older, there's a chiyuv on them too, but there's a chiyuv on the parents also. But maybe you would have to bring them anyway. So the kasha that we said before, not so strong. But there's another kasha, a main kasha. From Loshen Gemara in Kedushin Tfeilim Chayovim, the Gemara in Kedushin says the word Tfeilim Chayovim. Now, what does the word Tfeilim mean? Nit Ktanim Chayovim. It doesn't say Ktanim Chayovim. It creates anything like that. Is Mashmei Bapashta that Tzeretzich wegen demselben Sug Ktanim wie in Chagige. Tfeilim, which is Taf. Tfeilim is another word for Taf. Actually, the word Taf is the beginning of the word Tfeilim. The Gemara in Chagige says the word Taf. And there it says that the children are potter. The Gemara in Kedushin where it says chayiv, it says there's loshen tfeilim, which is the same loshen. And if it's the same loshen, so we can't say that they're talking about two different levels of ktanim. That in Chagige it's talking about small ktanim, and in Kedushin about bigger ktanim, when the loshen is basically the same. When Rashi is medayik as tfeilim chayovim based on from loshen v'hataf. The Ashetaka says, how does the Gemara know that the Tfeilim, the Gemara in Kedushin says Tfeilim Chayovim, the Tfeilim, the children are Chayiv? Because the Posik says Vataf, a state in Friedrich and Posik, which is in the Posik, Hakeles Anoshim Vataf. Not from the Posik Shalach Azeh B'nei Mashal Yodu. Because according to the Pshat we said before from the Mashah, that the older children have their own Chiyuv, because we learn it now from the Posik of B'nei Mashal Yodu. And that's what the Gemara in Kedushin is talking about. But the Rashi in Gemara in Kedushin says that how do we know Taf is Chayiv from the posik as anoshim v'ataf. So we're using the posik of taf, which is the same posik we use in Chagige. But then is muchachad the kot natzmi hot of dem chiyuv from mitzvah hakel. And that we understand that the Gemara in Kedushin says that the cotton has a mitzvah hakel. And according to those that say that it means all kinds of children you have to bring, even the small children, they are also chayiv in the mitzvah hakel. That when the Gemara in Kedushin says tfeilim chayovim children are chayiv, refers to very small children, and some say bechal very small children don't have to come, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the shittas that little children have to come, but it's mashma that they have to come. It's not only the parents have to bring them. That's what it says in Kedushin, tfeilim chayovim, and it says even more that had the Torah not said women are chayiv, we would have known it from the fact that children are chayiv, and we're talking about all kinds of children that even they are mechuyev with mitzvah hakel. If so, Kasha comes back. How does that fit with the Gemara says in Chagige that the taf, and it means the same category of children, like it says in Kedushin, Archayev, and there it says no. There it says that why do they have to come? So that people who bring them, the parents, should get schar. Besides that, from that a simple question, when we say that children are chayiv, the Gemara says a loshon, but it's not only a Gemara. The Svara says that. The Gemara says in Psochim that there's not shaykh to give a chiyuv on children. Children don't have the das, so you can't give them. So how could you say? So even if there wouldn't be a contradiction from the Gemara in Kedushin to Gemara in Chagige, but how does the Gemara in Kedushin say that children are chayiv when the Chagige is mashman they're not chayiv? Without the theater, how could the Gemara in Kedushin say that children are chayiv? There's no such thing as a child being chayiv in the mitzvah. Children are not b'nei deyas and are not able to be chayiv. So we have back to this contradiction. This whole drash, where it says that the reason children had to come is to give reward to the parents. Who said this? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So, but it didn't start with these words. It didn't start taf loma boy, and why do the children come? So the parents should have schar. It started like this. That's what Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said. If the man come to learn, the woman come to hear, because the pasuk says to learn and to hear. That's how it starts, and it continues. Taflama boy, why are the children coming? But it starts off with a statement that he's telling us you should know that the men come to learn, the woman come to hear, and then he's going to explain what did the children come for, to give schar to the bringers. Chure, what does it mean to say men come to learn, women come to hear? It says in the Torah. That says in Chumash, they should hear and they should learn. Why did they have to come up with a statement saying, you should know the men come to learn, the women come to hear? Well, obviously, his whole chiddush is wondering why the children come. Good. So he should have just started off his statement. Why did the children have to come? And he will answer, to give schar to those that brought them. Why did he start off by saying, men come to learn, the women come to hear? You can't learn and you can't say, as ein noch anam. Could be taka true. Maybe Taki, when he says men come to learn, women come to hear, that's not a chiddush. Not trying to tell us something that you wouldn't know. It's just an introduction to the end. The end is trying to say, why do the children come? So he starts off by saying, as if saying something that we know. As if saying, the men taka come to learn. The women come to hear. That's something that makes sense, but it's not that he's mechadish. But why do the children come? Like sometimes we find the Gemara Bishleme. Gemara sometimes comes with the question and says, Bishleme, this and this we understand, but what about this? Or sometimes it says, oh, the Hanicha. Hanicha, this is good according to this, but what about the other one? So here also, it's almost as if the Gemara, is saying that Bishleme, Mele, Anoshim, the men and the women, we know why. But it's not Mechadish. But I'm trying to figure out, why do the children have to come? So B'meila, it's not a kasha. The kasha was, what's he mechadish with saying men come to learn, women come to hear? It's poshet. He's talking not mechadish anything. It's just an introduction. So the Rebbe says it's hard to say that. Vorum number one, demot, but anstatt im gedarf stehen der Loshon Roge b'shlimme. Shouldn't have said im anoshim boyim v'umet. If men come to learn, should have started the way normally. B'shleim and meili, men come to learn, women come to hear. What about the children? So that's one svara why this is not what he meant. Nochmer, go further. Even when the Gemara uses the word bishleme as an introduction to a question, that Mela, this and this we understand. Zog the Gemara, this itself, Gemara says it when it says do in them achidush inyan of the Torah. Even that is only when there is something that the Torah, the Gemara is trying to machadish. Mela, this we understand the chidush. It has to be a chidush. But we're learning taruis. So a chidush we're learning out. We need dos v'shteit mefurish, not something that's clear. The Gemara will not say it, but something that's very clear. Now, the Gemara will never say the Bishlem tefillin we have to put on because it says in the Torah. Well, obviously it says in the Torah. And sometimes that even when he starts the introduction, it's also something to tell us. The Gemara says sometimes, according to this opinion, we understand. So obviously he's trying to tell us when it's two opinions, and according to this opinion, it's something that's not so posh because there's another opinion. But here, when he says the men come to learn and the women come to hear, there's nothing that he's adding to the post. So why does he say it? But yes, the kasha is even stronger. The drasha from Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah and gebracht in Pirish Rashi alateira. This Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah's drash, Rasha brings in Chumash, and Rasha does in Chumash eingeteilt die besondere Werte from posik. He says each thing on the separate word of the posik, which means like this. If anoshim, Rasha says quotes from the posik. Posik says you should gather anoshim, men, women, and children. Rasha quotes the word anoshim. And Rasha, Zokt Rasha Lilmud, he explains what it means. What do the men come for to learn? The Noch is a mighty from Posik Noshim, then he quotes from the Posik the word Noshim, women, when there's a Farashin explains. They come Lishmeya to hear. And they Taf, when they come, then he quotes the word Taf, children. So and that's Zokt Loma Bo Los Ischamarim. Why did they come? To give schar to their ones abroad. Zetman, so according from Rasha, we see Azeich their Lilmud by Anoshim, or the Lishmeya by Anoshim, is a Pirish Verzich. Rashi tries to explain why do the men come. It's not like saying it as an introduction to it. He's teaching the word Anosha. Why do they come? It's a shot for himself. It's almost like a chidush that the men come to learn. The women come to hear. Need blaze a hakdama to the shaila taflam abayim. It's not just an introduction to what it says later to explain why the children come. So it comes out that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is trying to tell us something by saying that the men come to learn and the women come to hear. And the question is, what's he adding to what the pasuk says very clearly? You could answer based on what Taisva says. Taisva says, it says in Yerushalmi concerning this thing, the Leib Benazai. This doesn't fit to Benazai. The Omer Benazai says, Chayiv Odom Lelamet Lebite Torah. Benazai says a man is obligated to teach his daughter Torah. So the Baldas in Posik state man yishma man yilvenu stam. When the Posik says that they should hear and they should learn, and it says stam, and that goes to mashma the kela leich noshim. That's mashma, it comes noshim also. So if it comes at noshim women also, so it seems like it fits to Benazai. Benazai holds that women have to learn. And the Gemara wants to say that what Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is telling us that he does not hold like Benazai. Women don't have to learn. So again, Yerushalmi, it says that what he's trying to tell you, not that he doesn't hold like Benazai. How does he know it? Because the Posik says, Yiman Yishmu and Leman Yilmud Stam is mashma that it includes women also, that women have to learn. But the Riber, the Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, was halt a metonit learner Torah b'nei Yisrael, nit Benazai. That's why Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, who does not hold like Benazai, he holds women shouldn't learn. That's why he has to explain. Now the Posik means the Posik doesn't mean Lishmeya. The Lashon is Yishmun Leman Yilmadun, goes on both. See, Posik Pshat, you can learn the Posik. It says get men and women. Then it says they should hear and learn. So normally you would learn, it goes together, everything, that the men and the women should learn and hear. So if that's the Pshat, is that the women have to learn. And that's what Benazai says. Comes Elazar ben Azariah to tell us, that's what Yerushalmi says. And I disagree with Benazai. Women don't have to learn. That's why he's telling you, divide the Posik. The Posik meant let's do it, and the Posik is divided into parts. Anoshim boy Vilmud. The men can come learning. But Noshim boys, the women just come to hear. So according to this, there is a chidush that Elazar ben Azariah is telling us by telling us men come to learn and women come to hear, even though it says in the Posik, because he's trying to tell us something according to this shot. He's trying to tell us you should know women don't come to learn. The men are there to learn. The Posik puts them together, Yishma ma Yilmadun, and it says men and women. So you have to know the Posik has to be divided into parts. So we could, through this, answer the kasha. The kasha was that what he's telling us when he says men come to learn, women come to hear. Now we understand. According to this, you could say very precise. It's come to teach us something. Come to teach us. Men should learn, women should not learn. Women should just hear. So the answer the kasha. So, but I can say I learn and do, but it's hard to say that's the pshat here. But in the sugi and the gemara, when the drosha of Elazar ben Azariah come and learn the dinim of protein for parashas hakel. When Elazar ben Azariah was saying his thing here that men come to learn and the women come to hear, the whole discussion here he had is nothing to do to teach us what is the din of Torah. The women have to learn Torah. He's trying to teach us pshat in the mitzvah of hakel. Unit dem din anoshim zayne mechayobes oder asuras v'lim of Torah. It's not trying to discuss whether they have to learn Torah, they don't have to learn Torah, and then it's trying to. You would think that they do have to, and he's telling us you should know it's only lishmeya. That's not the place for this. Is mashma that he's teaching us something, a chidush, in the dinim of hakel, and that's a problem because what's the chidush in the Torah? It says that. What's the chidush? In the Kudas Abir, as the Rebbe said, the Kud of the explanation is like this. Pashas haposek hakel as ha'om ha'anoshim atav. Let's look at the posek the way the posek is in simple chat. Hakel, he shall gather the nation, men, women, and children, etc. Leman yishma man yuman man yiru. In order that they should hear, and they should learn, and they should fear Hashem. From this lashon is mashma as the mitzvah from hakel is hayochid. The Torah is speaking to one person. You gather the people together, and who is that one person? That's the melech. He should gather men, women, and children. So who has this mitzvah? Who has this obligation to do hakel? A mitzvah and a melech. But the men, women, and children don't have a mitzvah. That's what it seems like. The mitzvah, it says, look at the Torah. Gather the people together. The Pasuk says that they should learn. And that hemshech hakosev. And when the Pasuk continues, that they will hear and they will learn and they will fear Hashem, is it's only the purpose of the mitzvah. That's not the mitzvah. That means they tell the melech, you have a mitzvah together. Then why? Because through that they're going to learn. That means that laman do is al derech the laman became his b'teiret. The word laman yilmadu, laman yishvu, laman yilmadu is like the word laman many places. L'dugma, for instance, laman asher yetzav es banu b'beis achrav. The pasuk said by Avram Avinu that laman that he will command his children and his family after him. That's doing something in order that this should happen. Or laman yibri yemechem mevenechem. It says in Krishma, do this and this mitzvah. Laman you will live long. So in other places. So what does it mean? Was bechlava pirov usually main nit kan inyan napula was tutzich behavior. Doesn't mean something that's now. The Moshe it says in the mitzvah in Krishma put up a mezuzah laman yibri mecha. So you put up a mezuzah and something. The purpose of the mezuzah for something that's going to happen. Because of that, you will live a long time. You will live later a long time. So it's not something that's done behavior, which means now. Now is put up the mezuzah, and that laman so something others thing will come out of it. No, but will come out after that. So the same thing is laman here. The Torah says to the king, gather all the men, women, and children. Laman that they should learn. That means the matoras hamitzvah from hakel. The purpose of what the mitzvah of hakel is there for. Of the mitzvah of hakel, which who has it? The king. Was his makil on lane for the parshas of the Torah, which gathers all the Eden and reads parshas of the Torah for them is what's the matorah, the goal? As a result for them, that the Eden, all the Eden should be able to listen and learn. So comes out that that's not a mitzvah. Learning is not part of the mitzvah. That's a result. Rabbi says the mitzvah is gather the people, speak to them. The purpose of what am I trying to reach? That because of that they will learn, which is mashma l'chura from Lashon Rambam. It seems like that from the Rambam. The Rambam writes like this: Mitzvah sese l'hakel kol Yisrael noshim b'tav. It's a mitzvah sese to gather all the Eden, which is men, women, and children, veliklis by name in the Torah, and you have to read in their ears to them from the Torah parshas, shemizarzeis, and the mitzvahs, certain parshas which will strengthen them in mitzvah mechaskas yedeim b'das emes, and will strengthen their hands in the true religion. Because from them, Loshen is moving us from this Loshen of the Rambam seems like this. No, comes out. Number one, as mitzvah hakel is mitka mitzvah if yada eden als yochid. The mitzvah of hakel is not a mitzvah of every individual. As daf kumas ich mishtat to say mitzvah hakel. The Rambam doesn't say that there's a mitzvah for everyone to come to Yerushalayim for the mitzvah of hakel. Doesn't say that. We start the mitzvah is to gather, which is a mitzvah to makil zayin. The mitzvah is to gather. So, and who is the mitzvah to gather? The tziva is sumelach was bekechel hakel to the person who is able to gather all the Eden. That's the king. Or the bezin, because it says that there was no melech for some reason. Then the bezin does it, but it's all because they have the power to gather all the Eden. So the Rambam says, number one, it's a mitzvah to gather. So the mitzvah is on the gathering. Number two, mitzvah hakel is mitzvah hamelech. The mitzvah hakel, number one, it's on one person, and the mitzvah is the mitzvah of the king, which is tikro. He should read. Hakel he should gather. Mider matorah. He should do it in such a way with a goal. What's the goal? And we'll skip the parentheses in a second. The goal is Asher Yishmu, that they shall hear and listen to the Torah. But the far length and the parashas and the mitzvahs, that's why he has to read parashas, which will be mezarah the Eden in doing mitzvahs, mechaskas yedeim b'das ha'emes, and will strengthen their hands in the true religion. And from Abim, and he has to read it from Abim because he has to gather them and read for them in order for that to have an effect on them. And in the parentheses, he says, you could go more. Not only he has a mitzvah to gather and read the Torah. Then the Pasuk says, why does he have this mitzvah? What's the purpose of the mitzvah? The purpose is that Eden should become more frum. The Rebbe says you could even add a little bit more. This is part of the mitzvah. The mitzvah of the king is sheyakhil ve'yikro ba'efen asher yishmu. Not only is the mitzvah should gather the people and read parshas. Since this is the matorah, the goal of the mitzvah hakel is that Eden should have more Yireh Shamayim, do mitzvahs better. The king has an obligation, part of his mitzvah, to read it in such a way that it will affect them. But it's all part of his mitzvah. He has to bring them, he has to read for them the Torah, he has to talk to them in a very good way, in a way that it should strengthen their mitzvah. And the purpose is so their mitzvahs will be strengthened. The anoshim, v'tav, the men, women, and children themselves, is norbas durch zeir kumen, vet niskayim, that tziva was is off makil. If they come, that's how the mitzvah of the one that's gathering them is fulfilled, which is the melech. And when the Eden it takes effect, they are influenced, that they hear and they learn and they're fear Hashem and they keep the mitzvahs. In the future, meaning after this is finished, this has an effect on them that they will now go home and they will learn better and now, etc., etc. But so that accomplishes the goal, the purpose of why the king has this mitzvah. That's how we would learn Poshav Shat. If you learn the Psukim, it's a mitzvah on the Melech, he has to, And the purpose of the mitzvah is that they should learn. It's not that they have a mitzvah to come and learn. They have a mitzvah. They don't have a mitzvah at all. The king has a mitzvah to bring them. If they come, they help the king fulfill his mitzvah. But it's the mitzvah of the king. He said, comes Rabbi Elazar of Nazariah and tries to explain what is the real meaning of the mitzvah of Hakel. And he says like this: Noshim boyim, the reason the men come, the slilmid, they come to learn. Noshim boyos, why did the women come? The shmei to hear. But from them is a machadash tvei zachen. He tells us two new things here. Number one, tzachir gavre eichev de anoshim anoshim atzman zayin boyim. Come on. That the coming is not only he has to bring them and they should help him do his mitzvah, they have to come, they should come. But it's only his mitzvah, not theirs. He says, no, they're coming because it's a mitzvah on them to come. Even though true that the mitzvah of coming there and getting together, the Torah put on the makil, which is the one that's gathering them, which is the king. That mitzadem achiv gavre anoshim anoshim durchzuführen the mitzvah for the makil. As an obligation on the people, the men and the women, to come. It's like they should come, so the mitzvah of hakel from him should happen, which means that the mitzvah is stuck originally on him. But because they are the ones to make him be able to make his mitzvah, they are also obligated in the mitzvah. And he gives a very interesting example, the Rebbe, that al derech divrei arana yeduim negei isha b'piri v'riva. Like the famous Ran says concerning a woman with the mitzvah of having children. Because the Gemara says, mitzvah that it's a bigger mitzvah for a woman to get married and receive the kedushin herself rather than sending a shlich, even though she could. Comes the Ran and asks the kasha, what do you mean she has a bigger mitzvah doing it herself than if she sends a shliach? She has no mitzvah at all. The whole idea of getting married is because you have a mitzvah of having children. She has no mitzvah. There's a din that the man has a mitzvah of Peter, but if you have children, women not. And the Ran answers like this. Even though the woman on herself doesn't have the mitzvah of Peter, she has a mitzvah because she helps her husband do his mitzvah. He can't do his mitzvah without her. Since the mitzvah is on the husband, but the husband can't fulfill his mitzvah without her, it's considered that she also has a mitzvah. So the same thing I want to say here also, that because the makil, the melech has to gather, and he can't gather them unless they come. So he has the mitzvah, but because of that, they have a mitzvah. But there's a difference between the case of hakel and the case of the Peter Berivia. The chilik is no, the difference is like this. The negaya, the Peter Berivia, concerning having children, and we say the mitzvah is on the father and the man. And because she participates in the mitzvah, therefore, she also is considered having a mitzvah. We don't say that Peter Berivia is a mitzvah on the woman. She's novas yeshla mitzvah. She has a mitzvah because she's part of his mitzvah. There, her participation, not because there's an obligation on her or anything, because physically, when mitzvah says he can't have children without her. But mainly because of that, she has also part of his mitzvah. The Baal can be mitzvah in the times and mitzvah on the isha. The mitzvah that's on him without the woman, he can't. But nidin the dadomer, concerning our case of hakel, is the ishtatfus from the anoshim v'noshim v'tav, the participation of men and women and maybe children. Not nor mitzvah matzias. Not only the mitzias is because if he has a mitzvah, the melech has a mitzvah to gather them, and if they don't come, physically he won't be doing his mitzvah. So mitzias, in order for him to fulfill his mitzvah, they have to be part of it. It's not only that. Nor gather a mitzvah. Here it's more. The Torah says that that the people have to come. So mitzvah, the mitzvah, they have a part in the mitzvah. They are the chefse from the mitzvah. They are the object of the mitzvah. Das is was the darf sich rufen the Yishmael Yilmadu. They are the ones in which the golden mitzvah, the mitzvah is on the king, and the king has a mitzvah to gather them. The king has a mitzvah to teach them, so they should learn them. So the object of the mitzvah is what? They are the object of the mitzvah. Just like a person puts on tefillin, the person is the man that puts on tefillin. The tefillin is the object. The mitzvah is take tefillin. Here, the mitzvah of the melech is to bring the people and teach them that they should Laman Yishma, that they should learn. The Mele vet the derech hamela chiv gavra avzei. So here they have a mitzvah. So it's like the case of Peter Beriva, but even more than that. There it just happens to be. There's nothing special with the woman in the mitzvah Peter Beriva. It just happens to be that he can do it, so they have part. Here the Torah stresses. Imagine if by Peter Beriva the Torah would say the man has a mitzvah And it would say also mention the woman in this mitzvah. If it would mention the woman in the mitzvah, also she also has a mitzvah. But now Torah didn't mention. Elamai, it's obvious that since there's no other way he could do the mitzvah, so they're part of it. Here the Torah mentions them. Anoshim, Noshim, V'tav. Derech, Divri Achreidim, like the famous word of the Chreidim, Hayiduyim, As is doa mitzvah says al Yisrael, as is on gebencht werden durch the Kenim. Like this, the Birchas Kenim, the Duchening that the Kenim bench the Yidden. If you look in the Pasuk, it's a mitzvah on the Kenim. David said to Moshe, speak to the Kenim have to bench the Yidden. So the Chreidim says that even though the mitzvah is on the Kenim, there's also a mitzvah on the Yidden to be benched by the Kenim. But they are a chelik in the mitzvah. Because there we stress the Yidden too. So here also, since the mitzvah of the Melech is to bring the call, he has to bring them. He has to bring the Noshim, Noshim, Etaf, and without them they can be. But not only the mitzvah. The Torah says that this is what we want the men to come, the women to come, and the children to come. The male, the men and women should have their own mitzvah. So it comes out that he's saying a chidush. When he said men come to learn, women come to hear, yes, he's trying to tell us men have to come. In other words, the coming is in order to hear the Torah, to learn the Torah, the women to hear the Torah. So they have to come. And when the Pasuk says, Leman Yishmu, Leman Yilmadu V'yira, that it's in order. And we said before that the word Leman means something that will happen later. So it's not part of this mitzvah, it's just the goal of the mitzvah. So the Rebbe says, according to this shot, it's not like that. That Leman Yishmu, this is part of the Chiddush of Elazar ben Azariah. That Leman Yishmu, Leman Yilmadu Gemer, in order that they should hear, in order that they should learn, is not nor the Matorah v'titzoas, Matorahs v'titzoas HaMitzvah. It's not only the goal and the outcome of the mitzvah, but also the Teichen mitzvah. This is the mitzvah itself. This is part of the contents of the mitzvah. The Chiyuv of the Anoshim v'Noshim to come to Hakel, this obligation that man and woman have to come to Hakel is not nor to sein dort and Kedei soll durchfinden the mitzvah von Hakel as from the Melech. Not only they have to be there so the mitzvah Melech could do his job of gathering the people. And durch them wird der Gericht werden der Matorahs HaMitzvah v'chalabos, and this will bring about the goal of the mitzvah, which will happen later, the way we said before. It's not only that. No, the Lilmud v'Lishmeya is eich der Teichen from the mitzvah from B'yis HaNoshim v'Noshim. This is part of the mitzvah. Since there's a mitzvah on the men, so there's a mitzvah on the men to come and learn. He says they come. See, according to the other Pshat, they're not coming to learn. They're coming to help the king do his mitzvah. And the Torah tells us, and by the what's the purpose of the mitzvah? It tells us the reason. Now we're saying, when Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said that when it says that the men have to come, they have to come lilmud. That's part of their mitzvah. Their part of the mitzvah is to learn now. The part of the mitzvah of the woman is to hear now. Now that we learn, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is telling us that they have their own mitzvah. And what is their own mitzvah? They should learn now and hear now. Comes Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, he's asking, we understand what is the purpose of the mitzvah, not the purpose in the future. Even now, what is that we're supposed to do now for this mitzvah? The men are supposed to come, the women are supposed to come. We know why. The men should learn, the woman should hear. The children, why do they come? What inyan is there? What obligation is there for the children to come? Which would be similar to the men and the women. We know why they would come to help the king do his mitzvah. That we can understand. Because he has to gather everybody, men, women, and children. So the children have to come. So he should be able to fulfill mitzvah. But now he said it's not like that. Besides the fact that they have to come to help him fulfill his mitzvah, they have an obligation themselves to learn. Which as they come, they are learning, and the women are listening. So that part, where do we find that by the children? What's the purpose of the children? That's what the Rebbe says. He bedugme to them kuma from the anoshim, the noshim. What? That's what he's asking the Shaila. The men have an obligation on their own to come to learn. The women have an obligation on their own to come and hear. Besides the obligation to help the melech do his mitzvah. But the children, what do they have to come for now? Besides the fact that they're all equal, was durch Zeir Alam and Kum and Vert Pekuya the mitzvah von der Makil, und uns geführt der Matorah von Hakel. Besides the fact, which is something equal in all three, men, women, and children, that they help the melech, the one that's gathering, to fulfill his mitzvah. But we said that by the men and the women, there's something in addition. That besides helping him, they have a mitzvah to gain themselves by the hakel. That's what he asked. Is there such a thing by the children? By the children, it seems like they don't learn, they don't hear, it's nothing that they can accomplish. And they mentor Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah answers, this, that the children have to come and they have their own mitzvah to come. is not that they should learn. This is to give schar to those that bring them. The baldas if the taf is in shaychas ken chiyuv. You can't give a chiyuv on them. Is that inyan bazevet the elis neisef is no written schar at the end. This extra thing that besides helping fulfill the mitzvah of the melech in themselves, there is no chiyuv on their own. The extra chiyuv, what they will on their own gain. So this left is that the taf come. The extra chiyuv is for the parents that they have a schar to bring them. So there are two things here. There is that they all have a mitzvah to help the melech, to do his mitzvah. And that's also called a mitzvah, like we said before. In addition to that, each one has, the men have their chiyuv. They have a chiyuv to come on their own. And that is to learn. The women come l'shmeya. That extra thing that we said now, besides that they're helping the melech, by the taf, it's not for them. By the taf, it's for the parents. It's an additional thing that the children have by coming, and that is that the parents get extra schar. But the Gemara is of Tfeilim Chayovim. Now we'll understand what the Gemara in Kedushin says that children are chayiv. Because we asked the student, the Gemara in Chagiga says, like we just said, children only come, so the parents should get schar, but it's not that they're chayiv. Now we'll understand what the Gemara means. The Gemara said that had the Torah not mentioned women, we would know that they're chayiv anyway, the Kal V'chemer for men, canal, and we asked the Shaila. Then the children are not chayiv. According to the Gemara of Giga, the children are not chayiv. But now we have to remember we said that by the children there are two things. There is the chiv that they have originally, because the king has, and they have a mitzvah to go, because to help the king fulfill his mitzvahs. The extra thing is what we're talking about, that is to give schar to the ones that brought them. So the Rebbe explained, in the etzem mitzvah from hakil seine gleich sei noshim v'tzaitat. They were learning now, according to Belazar Azaria, the fact there's one nekuda that they're all equal. There's a chiyuv kloli to help the melech fulfill, and by the men coming and the women and the children coming, that's a chiyuv, part of the chiyuv of the melech. The baldas durch them kommen vet this kind of mitzvah for the makil. By them coming, the mitzvah of the melech who gathering is fulfilled. It's the mitzvah of makil, the mitzvah because of the mitzvah on the makil, on the one that's supposed to gather lahakil anoshim noshim etaf. Together, all men, women, and children, they all become a chelik of the mitzvah. And we said before, they are all a chelik of the mitzvah of the melech. So, like by the case of the Ran, that the woman is a chelik of the mitzvah of Pidya. And in them is can afgeminen nicht wegen welcher Ktanim es ist, and there's no difference which Ktanim. Afil Ktanim seien in Klal von Tfeilim Chayovim. Even babies are part of the mitzvah that children are chayiv, because from that angle, that is a chiyuv. The chiddush by a man and woman is that they have an additional chiyuv that they come to learn. But the mere coming to help the melech, that's equal to men, women, and children. So it's even babies, little children. By bringing little babies, we fulfill the melech, help the melech fulfill, and we're part of his mitzvah. So they're also part of a mitzvah. So the children, even according to the Belazar and Azaria, the children have their own chiyuv. Because the Belazar Azaria, when he was talking about the children coming just to give schar for that's the second part. That's the second part of the chiyuv. The first part of the chiyuv that they come because they're part of the mitzvah of the melech. And that's what the Gemara means, children are chayiv. Then the additional part by the men is to learn, by the women is to hear now, and by the children is the shesh of schar. And since that's what the Gemara means in Kedushin, children are chayiv. Sie seien bechlal the mitzvah, the etzema mitzvah from hakel. They are part of the mitzvah of hakel. Is a feel when es volt nit gestanden noshim by a mitzvah hakel. So that's what the Gemara means. Even if it wouldn't say by hakel the mitzvah that noshim have to come, women have to come. Seine bechal wollte mir abgelernt, als ich noshim seine bechal mitzvah. We would know that they have to come. Because just like children have to come, because we said no matter what they have to come, so women would also come. She's noras by noshim kum tsua by zei vet the seicha dachiv gavre. By noshim, it's not only that they have to come as part of the mitzvah of the melech, they have to come on their own also. Because on women you could put an extra chiv on them. The noshim gufa, the women themselves. Baktanim, it doesn't shy. Baktanim is not shy. So the question that we asked, one of the questions was, generally speaking, how could you say that children are chayiv? Besides the steer in the Gemara, how could you say children are chayiv? This type you could say. They have no chiv on their own. They become part, the chiv and the melech. They become part of his mitzvah. That's what means children are chayiv. They have to come. Why do they have to come? Because the melech has to gather and they have to help the melech gather. And if the Torah wouldn't tell us women, we would say they're also chayiv the same way as the children. That's what the Gemara means. But then there's another thing that the men have their own chiyuv, and that is to learn. The women have their own chiyuv. Shmeya, the children don't have their own chiyuv because they're not shaykh when they. But so there's still something there extra besides them being part of the mitzvah of the melech that they give schar to the midyayim. So when Elazar Bazari asked why the children come, didn't mean why the children come. Children come because they know why, because they're part of the mitzvah of the melech, so they're part of the mitzvah. The question was, is there anything extra in them? Just like by the anoshim, there's extra besides being part of the mitzvah of the melech, there's extra that they learn. By women, it's extra. So he says, yeah, there's something extra there too, but not as a chiyuv on them. It's extra because the Torah wanted to give more schar to the ones that bring them. The beer is to explain this in the pnimis deeper. But dafke mitzvahs hakel gefindt man as alle seinen gewinnen in dem mechuyo noshim etaf. We see something special by hakel. Everybody was mechuyo, as we said. Noshim, men, women, children. Ulidich is a chiva mitzvah makil of the melech. On the other hand, it's like a little strange thing here. Everyone is mechuyo, but the real chiyuv is only on one. The melech has the real chiyuv. Because of the melech's real chiyuv, everybody is part of the chiyuv. So it seems, is it one chiyuv or is a chiyuv on everybody? So Al Pipnimi, the Rebbe is going to explain it. As I'm moving up the Lashon Rambam, we understand it based on the Lashon of the Rambam. At the mitzvah from Hakel is Lachazik Das Haemes. Mitzvah of Hakel is to strengthen the truly religion. Or the Lashon Achinuch, or the word of Chinuch. Zeis HaMitzvah Omut Chozik B'Kovet Godel B'Das. This mitzvah is a very strong pillar and a very great honor for the religion. Shleimer HaPirish B'Zeh. Say, what is the pshat? That it's something that's a very major pillar in Yiddishkeit. How is this mitzvah Hakel a major pillar in Yiddishkeit? So the pshat could be like this. In Yonev Hakel, it's a Megalavan and the Kudus Amun Vayederin. The gathering of Hakel, everyone getting together, and the Melech teaching the Torah, is to reveal the Nekudah, the point of Emunah, of faith, by every Jew. Was dosti der Yesod va'omad v'shtagn tasemes, and that strengthens the religion. That strengthens Yiddishkeit. Machzikens Yedeyam Dasemes. That strengthens their hands in the Dasemes. What is the Yesod of our Das, of our religion? Is Emunah. In the Nekudah Amunah vet nischazek and nisgale, this Nekudah of Amunah becomes stronger and gets revealed. Of there was the Melech Leib Tzneif Ali Yidin and Beis Hamikdash, when the king gathers all the Yidin and Beis Hamikdash, and that is created lift name and the reason from the parashas. Why does that cause the strengthening of the Amunah? So they have explained. Say, yes, the Melech is the Leib Kal Yisrael. The Rambam says that the Melech, the king, is the heart of all the Yidin. So number one, he's the heart. So when the Melech does it, it brings out the things of the heart. It brings out the Emunah. Another thing, bringt rein den Bittul Kabbalah Sil Mach Shemayim V'Yiras Hashem and Ali. We know it says in Chassidus that what's the purpose of a king? The real purpose of a Melech is that since he's so close to the Eibush and he's so bottled to the Eibush, that he's the one that's causing that all the Yidden should become bottled to the Eibush. He brings Bittul and Kabbalah Sil into all the Yidden. He's Peil, so since he's that person, so he causes durch sein Makel sein the Eden, by him gathering all the Eden. Aber they on this Galaven in the Nekudah Seyad, that by all the Eden, the Nekudah, the Pintelid of every Yid was Drik Zechuis in the Munah Yiras Hashem, which is expressed itself in the Munah and Yiras Hashem. The river leint man the Parasha Shema B'Hoyim Shmei. That's why he doesn't read the whole Chumash Dvarim, but he reads there. It says Parasha Shema B'Hoyim Shmei. These two parashas talk about Kabbalah Seil Malchus Shemayim, Kabbalah Seil Mitzvah. The Gemara says that. Shema talks about accepting the yoke of Hashem. Parsha Shema speaks about accepting the yoke of mitzvahs. On the Parsha, then he also would read the Parsha of Asima like Melech, that you have to put a king, but make a king. But das Alt is made on carved time bazei the Amun and Yiras Hashem. This carves into the Eden and it awakens within them the Amunah and Yiras Hashem. It's meshach from the Aliyah all the years. Like the pasuk says that they should fear Hashem. Kol hayomim asher ha'chayim al adom. This affects all the years that you live on here. So that's the Chassidish Nekudah of what Hakel is supposed to accomplish. And this reason is the mitzvah, the way the mitzvah is written in the Torah, in Posik, is number one, Pali Yidin B'Shoveh. It doesn't mention differences. Men is one thing. In Chumash, it doesn't say men is to learn, women to hear. It says, Hakel Sa'om, Anoshim, Noshim, Atav. Everyone equally. Why? But in the Nekudah Sayadas, because that Nekudah of Yiddishkeit that expresses itself in the awakening of the Amunah is Faram B'Shova B'Yadirim. That's by everyone equal. From the Godel Shebekdelim is the Godel Shebektanim. From the greatest of the greatest to the smallest of the smallest. Eich Bataf, even by babies. Mamini bnei mamini Yidden are essentially believers, children of believers. So the emunah is equal to everybody. Why? Emunah is not connected to understanding. Because if it's connected to understanding, you can't say they're all equal. Some people understand better, some people understand less. But when we're talking about the essence of the neshama, the connection, the emunah, that's not connected to understanding, nor mitten etzem hanefesh is no by meeting with etzem hanefesh, and in that everyone is equal. So in the Torah, in Torah Shebiksav, it says make hakel for everyone equal, because what he's supposed to do, the king, is awaken the emunah, and that's by everyone equal. That's number one. Number two, es ist nicht angesagt geworden zu jeder Yochid. This mitzvah of hakel, as we said, started off not by telling it, every individual you have to come, nor to makil, to the one that gathers, which is sumela, to the king. Why is it? Weil der richtige chizuk, machzikes, we say this from the Kudas Yadis, even though we said it's for everybody, because on the Kudas Yadis is equal to everybody. But still, to awaken that and to strengthen that amunah, which is in the Kudas Amunah, bises al peilon zayin of kol hayom, so it should have an effect on your whole life, is nit bekeach atzmei. To awaken that, everyone has it equally, but to awaken it, you have to have a special keach. You can't do it yourself, nor mitzad by yedei the melech. It's because and through the melech. What said is in neshama close and close. So we know the melech is the one neshama, which is the general neshama of everybody. So he has that keach to awaken in everybody this nekuda, which is equal by everybody. So we see these two things in the Chumash. It's said to everybody equally, because it's talking about the munah, which is by everyone equally, but it's the mitzvah is given to the melech because he's the one to do it. He says, moving, something interesting that we find by Hakel, a wondrous thing. It's interesting. The pasuk says if you do Hakel, it'll affect you, make you fear Hashem. All your life, all the days that you're living on the world. Not like when you go up to Yontif. It says there's a mitzvah 3 times a year to go up for Yontif to the Beis Hamikdash. So it says clearly, when you go there, you get awakened, and you get more Yirah Shamayim. It says Mekudah Torah, but Mekudah Torah it says that every time you go, you get so much Yisayirus that it lasts till the next Yontif. Ad haregel habo achrav, as he says in Hara 61. Then you have to go again. Here it doesn't say that. Here it goes for a long, long time. First of all, 7 years. And Bechal the Loshen is it for all the days. Why is it? Well, the Pchine is verbunden mit Yechide Shebenefesh, because what Hakel accomplishes affects the essence of the neshama, which is called Yechide. But in the time talking in Shinuyim, that doesn't change. So things wear off, things which are not essence, but something of essence doesn't wear off. The Mela, when you do this, it stays forever. But Neisef, now in addition to that, is Mavayar Teresh Baal Peh. This is the way it says in Chumash, they're all equal. The king has the mitzvah. In Chumash, it doesn't say that every Yid has the mitzvah at all. It doesn't mention the king has the mitzvah to gather all Yidden equally. But we said the way Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah in Gemara explains that Rashi brings it in Chumash, he's saying it's not equal. Men come lishmeya, the woman come lilmei, the children come to give the parents schar. And we said they have their own mitzvah too. Not like it's mashma in Chumash, they don't have their own mitzvah. So that's what he says. So in addition to what we said before, comes the Gemara and comes Rashi and explains it like this. That in Teresh Baal Peh was in Irbet is Gala dos was is Mufle Mechusat Tomer Ben Elam. Teresh Baal Peh is revealed what's hidden in Chumash in Teresh Biksav. So what does the Teresh Baal Peh teach you now? In addition to what we said before, that this is a Nekuda of Amunah and that is by every Yid equal, and the king is the one that has the mitzvah to reveal it. So Teresh Baal Peh tells you, so the Gilu v'Yischaskas, for the Amunah to the Melech, that when the king is the one that gives the strengthening of the Amunah and the Yisayres, the Gilu from the Nekuda, that it affects the Nekuda of your Neshama, the Amunah that you have, but it has to also have an effect that it should be Begilu, to reveal that. It's not enough if it stays there in the depth. You have the feeling, the deep feeling, and it's Begilu. Has to come out and affect, influence all the other attributes a person has. The Amunah is not a specific attribute, that's the Etzem. But you could have the Etzem and forget about the details. It has to come and affect the details, which means the Keiches Pnimim, the inner attributes a person has. That every individual has to do. The king could be made at it and made it the Amunah and everyone equal. But then this has to affect that each one in his own way should change and should do the right thing. When in them seine schon nicht alle gleich, and that not everyone is the same. It darf sein bei jedem einen Lefi fun, everyone according to his Eifen. And Oshim Lumen, meant to learn, meant to hear, etc., etc. Und noch dem ist die Gemara Mamshich, and then the Gemara continues. Also durchbringen die Ktanim und an einem Menech sehen, der Mitzvah von Hakel, zusammen mit dem that when you bring the children and you bring them to the king and you put them into, become part of the Mitzvah of Hakel of the king, in the Keiches Pnimi from Meviyayim. That when you bring the children to make them part of Hakel, it helps that the Keiches Pnimi, we said that by every individual, there has to be individual things that he does which is shaykhs to him. If you bring the children, part of it, it helps you in your Keiches Pnimi, how much the Nekuda of Amunah affects your attributes, your individual attributes. Well, the Rebbe said, you could say, that could be that by bringing the children has effect that all your keiches, your individual keiches should be proper, could be even more than what you could do your own aveda. Your own aveda you could do it, but what could be more is by bringing the children, that affects schadl mevi'en. Now schadl mevi'en doesn't mean just reward for the ones that bring in. Reward means that you get a higher madrege. So it comes out here that's a nekuda of a munah that's awakened to everyone equally by the king, and that causes that nekuda of munah should have an effect on your daily behavior and everyone according to his level. And by bringing the children, that makes it even more. Now, the Rebbe doesn't say in which way it's more. Maybe it means if you bring the children into the mitzvah, that means that you affect your children. That helps you a lot. As it says in a lot of Sfarim and the Sikhs and the Chassidus, that when do we see the taka that you're really in the right way if you affect the children also, etc., etc. But it doesn't say it here. That we have a lesson to pay. The mitzvah from Hakel is in Shaykhs the Peil, even though the mitzvah of Hakel is not here. The Peil you don't have. Calls man the Beis Hamikdash noch nicht aufgebaut geworden. As long as the Beis Hamikdash was not built, we don't have the mitzvah of Hakel. Is the Chaber HaTeire, the Teire is eternal. When you know the Ruchnis is the mitzvah do gam bis man azeh b'chol motim. The Ruchnis like way, this mitzvah is here always, all over and all times. What does that mean? And there is practically speaking. But Darv Zen, we should see. During the days of Sukkos, specifically Sukkos, because Hakel was Sukkos. So mit Zedef bleiben, was wir reden zusammen, you should gather as many Yidden as possible. Nicht gucken, in welchem Matzav oder Jener, in welchem Matzav der oder Jener gefindt sich. Makes no difference that Yidden, what level he is. Keloich und Taf. That means even children. Children are on very low level. Them too. Balachas kamen bekam die Yidden, wir seien mechoyav mechol mitzvahs, aber in Suk von Taf, in the Gehe sehe die es ateidisch minutes mitzvahs, which includes especially Yidden who are adults, which really are obligated to do the mitzvahs, but their knowledge and their commitment to Yiddishkeit is like little children. You have to bring them also in a gathering amongst Yidden. As es can sein, as in Yediyah, is not their taf hanale yigiyah lechinuch, and it could be even there is comparing it just like by children. You have yigiyah lechinuch, older children, younger children. You can have people who are older, but they're in the level of taf, level of ktanim ruchnius, and they could be not only stam ktanim that not even yigiyah lechinuch, and noch afil nit mesugel to verstehen the medayik von Teire mitzvahs yadus. What does it mean a child? He's not old enough to understand what mitzvahs mean. You have some Yidden who are older, but they have no understanding. They're not in the level all to understand what Torah means, what Yiddishkeit is, and what mitzvahs are. But by bringing him into a gathering of Yidden. When you have 10 Yidden that says the Shechina is there, especially you make a gathering, but the whole purpose is to be me'er people in things of Yerushalayim. Help us through this helps. That this will help reveal this nekuda of Yiddishkeit and Munah, which he has, because it's always there, but he doesn't feel it. That's not the Gilui. This will help to reveal it. There may be and this will help, just like by the physical children, by bringing them, it helps give schar to the ones that bring him. If you bring in a Yid who is like Taf, and you bring him into such a Mesiba of Hakel, and you makarev him, so then not only will he be helped, this will bring an extra schar, which means an extra aliyah in your own aveda by helping him. And even when considering the children, the munah that we said, that we will awaken by bringing these people into the Mesibe, but Durchnehmer will penetrate into him in ganzen, completely, as when by him that not only will it bring out his amunah, it'll change even his attributes that he has. As when by him the shmiyah, the limud, they're going to hear and learn These Seviyotis Hashem Alakecha, Shomer Lasses Kol Divrei Torah Azez, they will listen to Hashem, fear of Hashem, and keep all the mitzvahs. Mizeicha to them call God Yeshuva Heina will be zeicha to the pasuk where it says when Mashiach will come. Call God, the same expression as Hakel. Call God Yeshuva Heina. A great community, a great call will come, which will happen. The Gula Amitis Vashlema Duch Mashiach Tzteinu, the real complete Gula from Mashiach Tzedkenu Pravan Hakel, and we will actually have the mitzvah of Hakel physically with Melech HaMashiach, Zama Beis Hamikdash Shlishi, with the Melech HaMashiach together in the third Beis Hamikdash.